Jonathan Pogash is the cocktail guru, a mixologist and hospitality expert.
See? Yeah. You know big words. Dude, I'm the cocktail guru. Cheers.
Jeffrey's his dad, a wine and spirits author, historian, and consultant.
So, I do my homework.
With decades of experience, they're always looking for the next big thing. Join this father and son duo for a few laughs as they explore the hottest trends in hospitality with the service industry's leading trailblazers and tastemakers. Welcome to the Cocktail Guru Show.
Okay, well, Dad, another meaty episode we have today, and I know you're very excited. You've been preparing for this for a little while.
I'm very excited because many of our interviews are just that, just interviews without any real personal involvement. This is an interview where I have had a great deal of personal involvement over the years, starting in 1960 when I was, about 9 years old?
Yeah. You've told me stories about how your parents, my grandparents, would bring you to, lavish meals in big cities around the country. Isn't that right?
Well, not necessarily lavish meals, but they would take me to really good restaurants.
And that's how you became a foodie.
And I believe that's one of the reasons why I am in the business I'm in today and why I love restaurants the way I do.
Yeah.
And the guest that we are about to interview is someone I had been wanting to meet for a long time, and fate has an interesting way of bringing people together because there was an event in New York with none other than Dale DeGroff,
of course,
our great friend and mixologist and father of the modern cocktail renaissance. And that's how I met this gentleman face to face at this particular event. So it's cocktails and Dale DeGroff that brought us together, and he is an instrumental part of this entire interview and story. And he is a photographer. He is a man about town. He is a fellow menu collector. And that's one of the subjects we will talk about, menus, of course. But he is the son of one of the greats of the restaurant industry, someone I liken to César Ritz and Auguste Escoffier, two of the great influences in modern cuisine and modern culinary world, in the restaurant world. And he is the son of Mr. Joe Baum, who to me is the one of the greatest innovators of the 20th century in terms of restaurants and cuisine.
Charlie Baum, welcome to the Cocktail Guru podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm delighted to be with you guys today.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. It's hard to know where to begin. But of course,
let's start from the beginning, Charlie. Where did you grow up? How was your upbringing? And what brought you into the world that you are in today? There you go.
Okay. Well, there's a simple question.
I'm just joking. You don't have to answer all of that, but maybe to give a little background.
I have answers to all of that, but I'll edit along the way. Growing up in my family was, to say the least, a food-friendly family. And from the time as early as I can remember, visiting, my grandparents had a hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York.
Oh, that's where I went to college.
Oh, there you go. So it was on Broadway, where the Holiday Inn, unfortunately, it somehow got a hold of the space and tore the hotel down. However, so my father was always in the hotel kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. So, and he had a great romance in the kitchens and with the staff there, which has been pretty well documented. But so they kind of passed through genetically and by experience to my family, which of course was my parents and my brother and sister. So there was always food adventures in the house. And I'll tell you that from the time I was probably 5 or 6, even going back earlier, when I was about 3 or so, and we lived in Florida for a bit. My father was working for a group of hotels called the Shine Hotels, and I remember at Christmas the lobbies of the hotels were phenomenally decorated, and it was great excitement. And of course, that what came home on Christmas morning was after the cookie and milk setup was in our kitchen, and the food the food adventure really began for me around there because it was some incredible display of cookies and there was a bite taken out of everything, et cetera, et cetera. But I began to have experiences that were closer to the hotels and the lobbies and the people that worked there and in the kitchens and so forth. So by the time we moved north to New Jersey, somewhere around 1955, 56, maybe 57, somewhere in there, my father started commuting pretty regularly to the city, but along the way was the Newark Airport. So that's where I really had my first, I think, great awareness of the excitement and the pleasures of hospitality. Not in a very sophisticated way, obviously, but I loved being in the restaurant.
And was that the Newarker?
That was the Newarker.
First of all, when I saw this menu that my dad is holding up right now, the Newarker menu, which was a full-scale restaurant at Newark Airport, I had a hard time saying the word Newarker. First of all,
I agree. Yeah.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue. But also, secondly, in my mind, I'm like, how can something like this be recreated today? In like, is it even possible with the way hospitality, the way the restaurants in airports are? I mean, it was quite a thing, quite a scene. Am I right?
Well, it became a destination restaurant. So the people that dined there had no intention or need to fly wherever, during their time in the restaurant. And that's why they were there. But I can remember when I was probably 5, 6, 7, spending a lot of time in there. And of course, a lot of attention was paid to my father's family table, but I just thought that was the experience everybody had. So I said, this is fun. So
now, Charlie, you lived in South Orange at the time, correct?
Yes.
And I lived in Maplewood.
Oh, that's right. We're border to border, right?
Yeah, and I went to the Newarker with my father. I don't think I ever ate there. I'm not sure. But I went there with my father because I know he would go to visit. He was involved with Restaurant Associates. And I know that at one point I visited the Newarker with him because he would take me to the airport from time to time to see the planes fly. And I remember once visiting this lavish restaurant at the airport, which was called the Newarker. And boy, what a menu they had too. This was your father's was his first project, I believe.
His first project out of Florida,
yeah, and it was a full-scale fine dining establishment with a very extensive menu. I'm looking at the menu now, and I can't imagine repeating the only restaurants in New York City, for example, would have menus like this.
It's pretty sophisticated for its time. And I think on that menu is where you probably will see the first appearance of the 3-clawed lobster.
Yes.
And a dozen oysters came with another. They're called knife and fork oysters, I believe, on that menu.
Yes.
And I think there was a baker's dozen. There was maybe another one on plated separately from the dozen. So it was kind of a nice act of, generosity. And
the drinks, I mean, a 90-cent martini, I'll take one of those any day.
Think how many you could have at 90 cents.
Well, how about this is a 75-cent martini.
Oh, okay. I thought there was something that was 90-cent whiskey sour, even better.
Yeah, but the Manhattan was 75 cents. The daiquiri the Scotch sour was 90 cents.
Scotch. And is that I can't conceptualize inflation. Is that inexpensive for the time, or is that kind of?
I doubt it. I don't know what the multiple would be now to give an equivalent, but I would imagine that in the 50s there are a lot of places where cocktails were 50, 60 cents.
And the equivalent, the modern day. Well, first of all, there is no modern day equivalent to an establishment like that. The closest might be, a fancy Delta Sky Lounge or something.
Yeah.
but
Well,
not even, you know.
No, no, not even close.
well,
No, you'd
clearly
have to
things
go
have
to
changed. Dining opportunities have changed in airports, as we well know.
Yeah.
no, you'd have to go to some really upscale steakhouse or other great restaurant in New York, in Manhattan, to find something like this.
Yeah.
And by the way, let me just mention that as part of this menu, this is an important point about Joe Baum's uh, creativity and his influence in the industry. Under the dessert specialties, it says Newarker Original Stuffed Crêpe Amoureuse, which means love, full of love, flambé.
Wow.
Now,
Well, Joe
that,
had a thing in those days for flaming
yeah,
desserts and food.
exactly.
Right.
Well, he was the king of flaming desserts at tableside, was he not?
The crepes were, if I remember very distinctly, the crepes were prepared tableside. And the reason, just quickly, well, I remember that when I was maybe for second grade or so, Joe invited all of our teachers of the time. My sister was a couple of grades ahead. My brother was too young at the time. But anyway, I invited various teachers to come have lunch at the Newarker, and some prime table overlooking the runways, etc. And the maitre d's, whose name was ironically Mr. Charles, came tableside and prepared crepe Suzette,
Mm.
and he was doing all the appropriate showy things. And when it came time to flip the crepe, right, he was 2 or 3 feet above the pan. He got distracted by a noise somewhere, turned his head,
Oh
and the
no!
crepe landed upon his shoes.
Oh
Oh
no.
I,
well,
as sophisticated as 6 or 7 year old I was, I thought that was the funniest thing I ever saw. I just fell off the banquette laughing, and
well,
I
at
got
least
a stern
it
look.
didn't land on somebody's head.
Yeah, it was
Indeed.
right.
Yeah, and I think Joe Baum also was known for flambés at Forum of the 12 Caesars as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
let's talk about the other places, and I think there was a jump to venues in New York City, correct?
Yes. Well, the Forum is a good example. Menu wise, it's kind of it's always been notorious for the language and the design of the really of all the tabletop, but particularly the menu and the front of the menu and the size of the menu and the scale and I don't know if you have one that you can read a couple of items from, but we would consider today to be extremely over the top.
Yes, and he brought in furniture from all over the world, did he not? And designers who very high level designers
I think
who
maybe
really,
William Pullman maybe was the
yeah,
designer there. Yeah.
yeah, who
Yeah.
were responsible for really over the top decor, over the top food. I mean, everything about it was. But he brought in great specialists who knew precisely what he wanted
And
to
see,
do. But
that's interesting, because that's the norm with with fine dining now, but it wasn't before, and he's kind of ahead on that trend.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, and again, the Forum's a good example of a vast amount of research went into the history of Roman dining
right,
and what would be, I guess, translatable into something that was contemporary, while still kind of honoring the tradition a bit, but taking it further and further and further. And that was part of the personality of that place, and the food was substantial. There was always, I remember, huge portions. Again,
and we're talking about what year are we talking
appropriately
about?
huge. They're large anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, but the Newarker was 50.
5, 6, maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah, yeah. And then the Forum of the 12 Caesars, well,
I believe it was
did
59.
that
Right?
come before the Four Seasons? The Four Seasons came
Yeah,
about in 1959.
59, 59, 60. In the Forum, I think it was earlier that year.
Oh,
Could
it
have been
was
58 or 59.
but
And where
around the same
and
time.
where was the Forum located?
The Forum, I think, was on 48th or 9th Street between, essentially it was part of Rockefeller Center.
Right.
So it was between the plaza and 6th Avenue on the north side of the street. And interestingly enough, I believe it was a steakhouse, maybe somewhere 5 to 10 years ago, came in. And I don't know what became of the place up to that time. But as they were doing some careful, renovation, they took off a wall, and underneath it was a tile mural of some Roman scene that was built for the form of the 12th season. So the excavation exposed still some of the history. I don't know what became of it, though. Yeah.
But I think the great revolution in terms of the culinary world came about, did it not, at the Four Seasons, where your father insisted on American products, on only serving fresh products?
Yeah, that was kind of, I would say, the earliest, not the onlyest, but the earliest, I would say, and very high-end dining, farm to table. And before it was, in all due respect, before it kind of found its way to California, not too long afterwards. But that they dealt very much with a lot of local farmers, etc. And amongst other fascinating stories about the research and the delivery of food and where it came from, that there was a mushroom farm somewhere upstate New York, probably not too far up, from where the various types of mushrooms were collected and then brought into the restaurant. And the person who collected the mushrooms was none other than John Cage.
Oh, the composer. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. I studied John Cage
Did
in
you?
college. Yes. Yes. I don't think Jonathan really knows much about him. Very few people do know about him.
I could tell by Jonathan's expression. You're
Yes,
very
yes.
politely
I'm
not
sorry.
trying to go.
I do not. But to get out of the conversation, I'm going to take a quick pause. We are going to take a quick pause, and we're going to come right back.
At The Cocktail Guru, it's all about the experience. We want our clients to taste and feel the aroma, the temperature, the flavor, to make memories when they try our cocktails. The Cocktail Guru was born in 2006 when there was a need for high-quality cocktails, bartender training, and expertly crafted drinks for special events. Then the Guru team moved to Massachusetts and expanded nationally. We even provide cocktail demonstrations on morning television institutions like The Today Show. Consider the Guru team for all of your events. Corporate clients enjoy our entertaining team-building exercises. Bachelorette mixology classes are fun for everyone. We can craft a signature cocktail bar for any occasion. Plus, the Guru team can design cost-effective beverage programs with staff training for any bar or restaurant. And be sure to join us for the Cocktail Guru podcast, where we regularly interview some of the hospitality industry's best. So why not consider the Cocktail Guru for your next project? Cheers.
Okay, and now we're back.
Well, John Cage did, if I remember correctly, I'm getting the time mixed up. He did something called 3 minutes and 45 seconds or something akin to that. Could have been 2 minutes and 50 seconds, 4 minutes, I don't know. But he did a piece with that title, and it's somebody sitting on a stool for that length of time doing nothing.
Maybe they were thinking about dining.
Well, what he wanted people to do was listen. Just listen to the ambient sounds.
Well,
and
there was this we have to do part 2 and 3. But there's stories about where a guy named Wally Heider, who was an interesting guy. He was a very early part of with Moog of electronic music experimenting and development, and somehow he got to my father to address the potential of having ambient sound in the restaurant. Never happened, but it was again one of those out there considerations amongst a lot of others.
And after the Forum and Four Seasons, what came next?
Then there was
further,
of course. Sorry,
a move further uptown.
Not quite.
Not quite.
It was a move to there you go. Jeffrey's holding that the La Fonda menu, which has become extremely collectible and a rarity.
La Fonda.
Yeah, La Fonda del Sol, and it was the ground floor of what was called the Time Life building, which I guess was on 50th.
Yes.
Right, just in the corner of 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
So it's still in the immediate neighborhood. So in on the top floor of that building was another restaurant called the Tower Suite. which was it was certainly a different kind. It was a little more of a formal place, but that's where as we laugh about it now, where Joe had all the servers, and the captains in particular, introduce themselves to the guests. Hi, my name is Fred. Yeah. So
no one had ever done that before.
Well,
that's breaking a fourth wall.
Well, I don't know, but it certainly got attention, and we have him to thank for that. I'm afraid to say, but yeah, there you go.
Well, one of my first jobs was as a server at Johnny Rockets, which used to be in malls all over the country. Not so much anymore. But our big thing was very much breaking down the fourth wall, and I would sit down next to my customers at their booth. I'd say, "Oh, can I just squeeze in here?" And then I would take their order and chat with them, and that was kind of like a thing.
That's friendly,
very friendly.
Yeah.
But this Lofondo to me was one of the talk about pleasure palaces. It was just the interior, the architecture. There was folk art. There was you could see the menu. The colorful. It was an open kitchen into part of one area of the dining room, which it's been also well documented where a lot of the grilling took place. And so servers could come pick up food in front of the guests and they'd go wherever. But it was an extraordinary place. And I was sad to see that go. But I would say of all the places that I went to eat, family-wise, that was the place where else can we go there? So it was just a fabulous experience.
My mother took me there because she loved Central and South American food. She used to make you'll laugh, but she used to make tacos for me on a regular basis, but we would have other things too. And only she and myself would enjoy this food. My father and my brother only wanted meat and potatoes, nothing exotic. So she would take me to restaurants for this reason, because she loved them. She wanted to explore La Fonda del Sol as soon as it opened in 1960. That's the restaurant I was referring to earlier when I was 9 years old. We would take the train into Hoboken, then take the PATH train into Manhattan, and then we would go to Bloomingdale's, where she would shop, and then she took me to La Fonda del Sol, which was my second fine dining establishment. The first one she took me to was Le Veau d'Or.
Oh, yeah.
Le Veau d'Or. But this one was splashy and huge and just full of excitement. And it made a tremendous impression on me. And I think it's what caused me to continue exploring food and restaurants. And it was revolutionary for its time, because how many restaurants were serving South American and Central American food?
Well, not to mention, notably pisco sours.
And the cocktails. Yeah. Pisco sour, it's spelled Sawer on this menu.
Well, it's probably a rare part of the Latin language somewhere that someone invented.
Yes. and it says Peruvian brandy sour.
Yeah.
$1.25.
Well,
and then there was tequila con sangrita, margarita, sangria Maria, cocktail del mono, which was anise, cognac, lime, and bitters, Tasco Fizz, San Martin Seco, Algarobina cocktail, Champagne Ananas, champagne with pineapple, and Cocktail Alegria, which was Pisco, Cointreau, and apricot brandy.
Let's drink.
Really interesting lineup. Now, there are others too numerous to mention. It was quite a list of drinks and food.
I think, right? Yeah,
it was just incredible.
That is quite a menu for those who are watching. Take a look at that. Oh my God! We'll have some still shots on the website.
But this
that restaurant also
very impressive.
They done a huge amount of research throughout Latin America by travel. Why this is all under development, which was like one of his things. To be whatever in terms of authenticity, etc. And a lot of the places they were on the road a lot with a team of players that would do a lot of the research and testing, etc.
And so that we can get to, all of the notable locations and venues. What came next throughout the 60s, 70s?
Quickly, at about the
Yeah.
same time, the original brasserie, also in the
Yes.
Sequence building, opened 24/7, which is also great fun. And in the what was then known as the Pan Am building, there were three restaurants kind of on the concourse. There was on the 43rd Street side, maybe. Well, anyway, it was something called the Trattoria, which was a very kind of bold and Italian, not I fair to call it a bistro, but a great fun restaurant. Next to it was Zoom Zoom,
Yep.
which was the kind of fast food. Every verse you could think of was served there with, great line. I think there must have been a great menu of beers, etc. And then something called Paul Revere's Tavern, which was a kind of a tavern experience. But anyway, the three of them all kind of came up at the same time. And that was kind of through the 60s. And then, where are we going to go to the 70s?
Then there was the Rainbow Room.
Well, 70s, the whole trade center complex was being developed.
Yes, absolutely.
So there were a number of restaurants, not just Windows on the World, but there was something called the Big Kitchen on the concourse floor, which was designed, I'm pretty sure, by Milton Glaser. And it was a food court, and that was also very, very early in food court days. But the food court was all under the same aegis of the World Trade, my father and all the restaurants that they designed, developed, and opened in the trade center. But obviously, then there was various other smaller spots and various floors throughout. But in Windows, of course, was the big deal. And that opened in 76, I believe.
Yes, and I was a regular there, too, because I was a member of the World Trade Center Club.
Well,
see, I knew you looked familiar when we first.
Which allowed me to go to the World Trade Center for breakfast.
Uh-huh.
Because it was not open for breakfast. Windows on the World was not open for breakfast.
That's right. But there was a lot of landmark things that happened in that restaurant as well. Besides Kevin Zraly's appearance.
Yeah.
There's one of the restaurants within the restaurant was called the Hors d'oeuvre, and it was kind of international food. But there was sushi served there in in 76 and onwards. Anyway, et cetera, et cetera.
But that too, Windows on the World was a tribute to American food,
yes,
and American wine and fresh ingredients only.
Correct. Yeah. And then from there, 70s, 80s, Aurora opened.
Yes. That was in 1986.
Yeah. In the meantime, I think there was a lot of consulting going on, around the country and exotic places developing restaurants for clients, etc. But then there was Aurora, and then while Aurora was still open, Rainbow was in development, and then Rainbow opened. I believe the openings parties were in December of 1988. And
it's Aurora, that location where I met Dale DeGroff.
Right.
I think I had known Dale before that. I had met him along the way, but I wasn't into cocktails. I was still representing the wine producers of Alsace at that time. But I went to Aurora to try to sell Alsace wine to the wine buyer. And
how'd you do?
I was told the wine buyer wasn't there.
Of course.
So I was about to walk out, and then I saw this fellow come in, and he introduced himself as Dale DeGroff and said he'd be happy to speak with me. But he wasn't the wine buyer, but he'd be happy to speak with me. And we talked about cocktails, of all things, cocktails, and what they were doing at Aurora. And he was telling me about the Rainbow Room project. And it was at that moment that I started getting interested in cocktails.
Uh-huh.
It was really at that very moment.
I thought it was when I started in the industry. That's what you've always said.
No,
you've always said that you were never into spirits and cocktails until I started working in bars.
Wait a second. Actively.
Explain yourself.
I'll explain myself. When I spoke to Dale, we started talking about history, cocktail history, Jerry Thomas. So that's what drew me in.
Okay.
Not the actual production of a cocktail.
That's okay.
Well,
if anyone other than Dale DeGroff, I would be more upset.
Right.
Well, interestingly enough, as you may know, that Joe introduced Dale to Jerry Thomas.
Yes. That's
Good.
why we can honestly say without Joe Baum, there would be no Dale DeGroff today.
Well, that's
As we know him.
kind, generous, and I accept.
Yeah,
And just
but I think
incidentally,
Dale would agree with that too.
I'm having lunch with Dale tomorrow. Not tomorrow, on Friday in the city.
Well, please give him our very best.
I shall.
Yeah. So
You said you guys are decent, so I should go along and do it with the show.
Well, Joe is the one who mentored Dale and was the one who suggested that Dale delve into the history of cocktail and Jerry Thomas in particular to recreate them for the Rainbow Room.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we just have a couple more minutes, believe it or not, left in our episode.
No, I don't believe it.
What do you say?
I don't want to
What do you say to that?
I'd say let's just have another break and a commercial and come back.
I know. We could do a part. we could definitely do a part 2 sometime. But
That would be
after the Rainbow Room, the success, what were there? I presume there were other consulting projects and all of that across the country.
Yeah, I would say then Windows. Then there was Windows 2, which there was kind of a little break in between. But Rainbow was just not the Rainbow Room. Obviously, the Promenade Bar was there. Rainbow and Stars, which was our cabaret, and there was the business club, and there's a lot of other things going on there. So that was pretty consuming, figuratively and literally, for those of us who were lucky enough to work there and to be there. And then I'm not sure when the second Windows came in, and with it again, Milton Glaser designed a lot of the graphics through, certainly at Rainbow and also at Windows 2. And I don't quite remember what year the second the second Windows opened, but it must have been also somewhere in the mid-90s.
But at that time, I was able to sit down with your father and speak to him. I was able to do that a couple of times, and that was still before I was heavily into cocktails, as I am now. But also there was a project that I had forgotten about called the American Restaurant in Kansas City. Yeah. With Chef Bradley Ogden.
Yes.
That was something I had completely forgotten about.
Well, there's a lot of legacy and a lot of wonderful people that worked with Joe, and I was certainly lucky enough to be there for a lot of it. And it's great to celebrate all those good things with you guys. So
it's quite a legacy that Joe left, and I'm glad that you're here and you're able to delve into it and dissect it a little bit more with us, and we're very grateful for the conversation, Charlie.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Great
we need to do much more on this topic because
we'll do more.
This is about the restaurant revolution in the United States. So it definitely deserves much more time, and we're giving it now. So we will have a part 2, I hope, and possibly a part 3. Thank you very much, Charles Baum.
Thanks so much. I have some ideas for further conversation, but anyway, today's been great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And take care. Hope I see you all soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye, Charlie.
That's a wrap. If you enjoy what we do, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show and our newsletter. To watch or listen to today's episode or to see the show notes, visit thecocktailgurushow.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, or TikTok. The Cocktail Guru Show is produced by First Reel Entertainment and is available via YouTube, Spotify, Zencaster, Apple, Amazon, EatsDrinksTV.com, Galaxy Global on Comcast, and wherever you enjoy your favorite shows.